You walk into a room and forget why you went in. You blank on a name you've known for 30 years, right in the middle of saying it. It happens, you laugh it off, but underneath the laugh, there's a real question sitting there. Is this just normal? Or is this the beginning of something worse? Here's what almost nobody tells you clearly. Everyday forgetfulness and serious cognitive decline are not the same thing, and the everyday kind is far more influenced by daily habits than most people realize. The problem is, most memory advice stops at do more crossword puzzles. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Research increasingly suggests that puzzles mostly make you better at puzzles. They're not doing nearly as much for your brain as the habits nobody talks about. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 habits that genuinely support brain health as you age, ranked from a strong first step to the one I consider the most powerful and most overlooked of all. Number 1, the last one, is something almost nobody connects to memory at all, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it. So stick with me for that one. Quick note before we start, this is general education, not medical advice. If you or someone you love is experiencing memory changes that are frequent, sudden, or affecting daily life, please see a doctor for a proper evaluation, since early evaluation makes a real difference. All right, let's protect that memory of yours. And tell me in the comments, is it names, words, or where did I put that thing that trips you up the most? I read every comment, and you're definitely not alone in this. Let's start with number 7, the most foundational habit of all. Coming in at number 7 is something you've probably heard for your heart, but maybe not for your brain. Regular physical movement. Here's why it matters so much. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain and is linked, in a growing body of research, to the growth of new connections in areas tied to memory, including the hippocampus, which is essentially your brain's memory processing hub. This isn't about becoming an athlete. Even consistent moderate movement, like brisk walking, has been associated in studies with better memory performance and a lower rate of cognitive decline over time compared to a sedentary lifestyle. Here's how to build the habit. Aim for a brisk walk most days of the week, even if it's just 20 to 30 minutes. Brisk meaning you could talk but would rather not sing. If walking is limited for you, any movement that gets your heart rate up a bit counts, whether that's swimming, a stationary bike, or a seated exercise routine. A helpful tip: movement outdoors seems to add extra benefit, likely from the combination of exercise, fresh air, and natural light together. So a walk outside edges out the same walk on a treadmill when you have the choice. This is the perfect starting point for anyone who hasn't thought about their brain and their body as connected before. They are, more than almost anything else on this list. Now number 6, something almost nobody thinks to check. Number 6, and one of the most underappreciated connections in all of brain health, is addressing hearing loss if you have it, instead of quietly living with it. Here's why this deserves real attention. This surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. Several large research reviews have identified untreated hearing loss as one of the most significant modifiable factors linked to faster cognitive decline in older adults. The thinking is that when hearing fades, the brain has to work significantly harder just to process sound and follow conversation, pulling resources away from memory and thinking. On top of that, hearing loss often quietly leads to social withdrawal, since conversations become tiring or embarrassing to navigate. And as we'll get to later on this list, social withdrawal has its own real cost to the brain. Here's how to use this. If you've noticed yourself asking people to repeat themselves often, turning the TV up louder than others prefer, or avoiding group conversations because they're hard to follow, treat that as worth addressing, not just an annoyance to live with. A hearing test is simple, often available for free through audiologists or hearing aid retailers, and modern hearing aids are far less noticeable and far more comfortable than the ones from decades ago. A helpful tip: even if you're not ready for hearing aids, simply telling people around you about your hearing and asking them to face you when speaking reduces the mental strain of constantly guessing at missed words. This matters enormously for anyone who's noticed conversations feel more tiring than they used to, or who's started avoiding group settings without quite realizing why. Protecting your hearing is protecting your memory. If this connection surprised you, that's exactly why this video matters. Go ahead and like it so more people come across this. Now, number 5, and this one reframes what brain exercise actually means. Number 5 is deliberately learning something brand new to you, rather than repeating a mental activity you already know well. Here's why this matters so much. Here's the part that surprises people. If you've done the same crossword or Sudoku puzzle format for years, your brain has essentially built an efficient shortcut for it, which means it's no longer much of a challenge, even if it still feels mentally active. What seems to matter more for building what researchers call cognitive reserve is genuine novelty, learning something your brain doesn't already have a shortcut for, which forces new connections to form. A new skill, not a familiar routine, is what does the heavier lifting. Here's how to use this. Pick something you've never done before. A new language, a musical instrument, a new craft, learning to use a new piece of technology, even a new physical skill like dance steps. The specific activity matters less than the fact that it's genuinely unfamiliar and a little bit challenging for you. A helpful tip: the little bit challenging part matters. Something so difficult it's just frustrating won't help much either. You want to feel like you're stretching, not straining. This is wonderful for anyone who's been doing the same puzzle book for years and wondering why it doesn't feel like it's doing much anymore. New and slightly uncomfortable beats familiar and easy, every time. Now, number 4, something we've actually touched on before but from a completely different angle. Number 4 is protecting your deep sleep specifically, because of something remarkable your brain does only while you're in it. Here's why this matters. During deep sleep, your brain activates something researchers call the glymphatic system, essentially a cleaning process that clears out metabolic waste products that build up during the day, including proteins that have been studied in connection with cognitive decline. This cleaning process happens far more actively during deep sleep than during light sleep or wakefulness, which means consistently shortchanging your deep sleep may mean your brain doesn't get to fully take out its own trash. Here's how to use this. Beyond the general sleep habits worth building, consistent wake times, a cool, dark room, limiting evening caffeine, know that deep sleep specifically tends to occur more in the first half of the night, so a full, unrushed night's sleep matters more than people realize for this particular benefit. Alcohol close to bedtime is worth being mindful of too, since even though it can help you fall asleep, it's been shown to reduce the amount of deep sleep you get later in the night. A helpful tip: if you wear any kind of sleep or fitness tracker, deep sleep is often reported separately from total sleep time. It's worth glancing at that number specifically, not just how many hours you slept. This matters for anyone who sleeps a reasonable number of hours, but still wakes up feeling mentally foggy. The quality of those hours, not just the count, is doing real work behind the scenes. Now, number 3, and this one is about a connection most people only think of in terms of the heart. Number 3 is treating blood pressure management as brain care, not just heart care. Here's why this deserves real attention. Your brain depends on a dense network of small blood vessels, and consistently high blood pressure can damage them over time, sometimes causing tiny areas of injury known as silent strokes, small enough that you may never notice a single dramatic moment, but significant enough, when they accumulate, to be linked with memory and thinking changes over the years. This connection between vascular health and brain health is one of the strongest and most consistently supported in the research, and yet blood pressure conversations rarely get framed around memory at all. Here's how to use this. If you already monitor your blood pressure, start thinking of good control as something you're doing for your memory specifically, which can be a more motivating frame than heart health alone. If you don't check it regularly, a home blood pressure monitor is inexpensive and simple to use, and tracking it over time gives you and your doctor much more useful information than a single reading at an appointment. A helpful tip: many of the habits already on this list, regular movement, quality sleep, and the sodium awareness we've covered in other videos, directly support healthy blood pressure too. So these habits reinforce each other rather than living in separate boxes. This is essential for anyone managing blood pressure who's never thought of it as a memory-protecting habit before. It absolutely is. We're nearing the top of the list now, but before number 2, if you're finding value here, consider subscribing. I dig into these overlooked brain-body connections regularly. Number 2 is treating regular social connection as seriously as you'd treat any other health habit on this list. because loneliness has a measurable cost to the brain. Here's why this is so powerful. Multiple long-term studies have linked chronic loneliness and social isolation to a meaningfully higher risk of cognitive decline in older adults, on a similar scale to some of the more commonly discussed risk factors. Regular social interaction seems to keep the brain actively engaged in complex, real-time processing, reading tone, following conversation, responding thoughtfully, in a way that's very hard to replicate through solo activities alone. And after retirement, or after losing a spouse or close friends, this kind of regular connection can quietly shrink without anyone quite noticing it happening. Here's how to use this. Build at least 1 or 2 real conversations into most weeks. Not just a text or a passing hello, but an actual back-and-forth conversation. Whether it's a phone call, a regular coffee with a friend, a class, a volunteer group, or a place of worship. If in-person connection is limited, video calls appear to offer more of this benefit than voice alone, since they include facial expression and engagement cues that a phone call misses. A helpful tip: if starting new connections feels hard, structured group activities, a class, a club, volunteering, tend to be easier entry points than trying to build one-on-one friendships from nothing, since the shared activity gives you something to talk about immediately. This matters most for anyone whose social circle has quietly gotten smaller over the years, especially after a major life change. Connection isn't just emotionally nice to have, it's actively protective. And now, the moment we've been building toward. Number 1. The connection almost nobody makes. Here it is. Number 1, and the habit I consider the most overlooked and most powerful on this entire list: actively managing chronic stress. Because of the very direct, very physical toll it takes on the exact part of your brain responsible for memory. If you take only one thing from this video, let it be this. Here's why this matters so much. When stress becomes chronic rather than occasional, the body maintains persistently elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol, and research has found that prolonged exposure to high cortisol is associated with shrinkage in the hippocampus, the very same memory hub that exercise, sleep, and social connection all work to protect. In other words, chronic stress doesn't just make you feel foggy and overwhelmed in the moment. It may be working against every other habit on this list at the same time, quietly undoing the good they're doing. Here's how to use this. This isn't about eliminating stress entirely, which isn't realistic. It's about building a genuine, regular release valve for it. This could be a daily short walk specifically used to clear your head, a few minutes of slow, deliberate breathing, time spent in a garden, prayer or meditation, or simply a regular conversation with someone you trust about what's actually weighing on you. The method matters far less than the consistency. A real practice done often outperforms an elaborate one done rarely. A helpful tip: if a specific ongoing source of stress is identifiable, a caregiving role, a financial worry, a strained relationship, it's worth being honest with yourself about whether that specific thing needs a real conversation or a real plan, rather than only trying to manage the stress it produces. This final habit is the one I want to stick with you most. Your memory isn't just shaped by puzzles and supplements, it's shaped by how much peace you're able to build into your actual daily life. That might be the most protective habit of all. So there you have it, 7 habits. From moving your body all the way to managing the chronic stress that quietly works against everything else. Regular movement, taking hearing loss seriously, learning something genuinely new, protecting deep sleep, managing blood pressure for your brain's sake, guarding against isolation, and finally, giving chronic stress a real outlet. Together, these matter far more for your memory than any puzzle book ever could on its own. Here's what I want you to remember most. You don't need to adopt all 7 this week. Pick just one, maybe booking that hearing test or calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, and build from there. These habits reinforce each other, so even small, steady progress in one area tends to lift the others along with it. And please, take real memory changes seriously. Occasional forgetfulness, especially under stress or when tired, is normal at any age. But if memory changes are frequent, sudden, or starting to affect daily life, please see a doctor for a proper evaluation. Early evaluation genuinely matters and opens up more options. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 surprised you the most? And is there someone in your life who could use a little more connection this week? Tell me in the comments. I read every one, and your words might be the nudge someone else needs. If this video gave you something to think about, please give it a like, share it with someone whose memory you care about, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Stay curious, stay connected, and take good care of yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.